So I just been here the other day,
Yep. That one was like lemon limeade or something like
I know.
that. It was really good.
yeah. In town. So I tried, see what they're always sold out.
Well, that's funny. That's exactly where I had been.
Like,
Yep. I never go there because it always end up in trouble at Target. I'm not quite sure what happens. I was only there for a backpack and I came back $100 lighter.
all those stores drive me crazy, but I like their cars, they're all so smooth.
Mm.
Like the grocery stores.
Well, it's nicer quality stuff than Red Meyer. And it's kind of nicer laid out, but the food it's perplexing. Food is perplexing to me. Like I never know what they have and what I never buy stuff like that. Food. Mostly things you probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Or have you heard anything?
We know that Amanda was going to,
She should be online now. Amanda, are you there?
I'm here.
terrific. Other than that, we didn't hear from anybody that they're not coming.
We heard, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this set up here, but, I did hear from Jen Wingard, and she says that I got stuck construction at the Seward High will be a few minutes late. And I expect, we haven't heard anything from Mike, so I expect Mike will be here at the time now.
I don't want to fill you up. Almost good.
No, we got a soil on it finally.
Still is. Got a truckload as well, I'm supposed to have a bobcat, it fell through, so. A shovel with yeah. Most there,
Good.
2 years.
Target for the budget meeting two, there's only, where it says MOAR now, just cross out R. So there,
Okay.
now look more.
Okay.
Yes. That's a pending thing.
Yeah, we can do
So
that.
I don't know if it's formally.
No, I don't think it's necessary.
And I
Heard you broke the collarbone.
I did, yeah. Yeah. It's on the heel, so that's good.
Did you have to have pins?
Yeah. And he screws goes in and like across the. Paula, what's your oldest up to this year? Is he go to
He's
school?
still trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
Trying to get him a labor job.
He just graduated last year.
And we gave him the year with the pandemic, we're like, okay, give it a year. in your years now, well. So we're working. They went down to Denver and spent a couple weeks together with my older son, and my brother. So
Oh, okay,
they enjoyed that.
nice. Summer heat.
Yeah, I guess it was hot down. I don't feel like we've had a summer here. It feels like fall already.
I know. It's driving down Timberlake, all these from the road. It's a true sign.
There was a funny warm wind in Anchorage this afternoon. I was walking around on the hillside trails and it was kind of breezy, but it definitely felt not like wind down here. I was even like wandering around in my t-shirt. Oh, it was like,
Yeah. I just think, well, maybe because I spend so much time inside working. Out of summer.
there have been some really lovely days. This is more like the summers of what I remember growing up in. For weeks without seeing the mountains. Or it felt like it anyway.
Ken Wingard is running late. And Amanda's on the phone. We do have a form, yeah, but there's.
So we can just start now. Maybe change a little bit. So, I'll call the meeting to order. PBRS public work session 3. Board of Supervisors committees, subcommittees, subject to that. That's about last statute, board of substitute 3.0 and 25 of meetings. The board of supervisors operates on the public instead to be conduct. Roll call. Co-chair, committee supervisor.
Brianna Sullivan, co-chair, Parks and Recreation, cemetery supervisor.
Kelly Wade, fire department supervisor.
Hello.
Amanda Sassy, road supervisor.
Thank you. We're expecting another attendee shortly. I recommend that we swap them around a little bit and maybe go to the Parks and Rec first. That could be further. I think we can have more discussion around the fire. Get more time. 2, 3, then 1. Yeah,
Certainly going to be change the agenda to talk about Parks and Rec first, and then you want to go roads after that?
let's do roads and Parks and Recs. Roads 3, yeah, do 2 and 3 and then back.
If you order to change the order on the agenda to speak to roads and Parks and Rec first, and then the fire department all
For a second.
Second, that.
Here's what was, but all those in favor?
I.
of them.
Didn't hear on the phone, is that a vote?
Amanda's a yes.
Okay, great.
Honestly, I can't hear I can't understand a thing that's being said. I'm sorry.
Gotta speak really loud. She can't pick up. The mic's right there. Trying to pick her up.
It's a last problem as well. Okay, so I think we have 4 in favor, and none against. I'm not going to go through the announcements verbally, everyone can see them. So let's go straight into the agenda. So we're starting with number 2, vote button.
Okay. That.
We got that.
So with the roads budget, street maintenance, the real increase on this budget, as we discussed the last 2 work sessions, is with the personnel costs, labor costs for Margaret and I, with our typical increase there. So we see just over $5,000 for an increase there, say $6,000 for that. So these are what we estimate. Like I said, my salary, there hasn't been an increase in 3 years. So executive pay, the will of the mayor. But Margaret's position is a union position, so there's step each year that increases there. So we try to reflect that. And then I just try to give these general estimates as we've been seeing as our averages for, for these 3 years posted, but definitely for the last 5 years, when we see like all these other things like life insurance, retirement, things like that. They're usually gradual steps. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down, most of the time they go up. So that's where we see a lot of the increase in this budget. And down below here, we get into the non-labor. So the different things we have for road operations, our contract, things like that. So not much change there in that category. I did take down the fuel just a bit on the MOA work truck. Just looking at our records in the last several years as to what we use for fuel expenses, along those lines. And then communications, things like that. We took down the phone a little bit, so we're not using as many lines anymore. We've changed some things up there. And then our fleet rental did go up a little bit just because we pick up another truck now in the summer because of our work crews. So we have an additional truck that we keep here and fleet. And then our winter costs or contract and services costs are still the same as it is there. Between 20 and 21, we did increase there because of the new contracts. So we went from 600,000 to 70,000 for our yearly costs. Probably the most significant increase would be our contribution to capital. So I did balance this between the two. Parks and Rec, we had a contribution of 150,000, but I balanced it as an exercise here between the two to show 125,000 for the two departments. So that would be our contribution to capital capital projects. So 125,000 is the biggest increase there. We've been at 25,000 for a long time. Actually, some years we've skipped doing increases, but I'm a true believer that we need to continue to grow that account so that we're prepared to deal with capital projects as they come along. And it needs more significant donation in there or contribution because of construction is just expensive and maintenance and facility upkeep is expensive. So that's the second. That's the overall largest increase. And then down below is the intergovernment charges. I'm giving an estimation that's set by the own operation management budget department, and they set those agencies every year. But that's usually within the range of where they are. So the difference for this budget would be 106,000 increase from last year, and we estimate our mill at 2.08. Like I say, I always estimate my mill ratings higher. And they always tend to come in lower when it would be uses other streams of revenue and rebates to increase our mill rate. So that's where we're at with streets.
Are you actually basing that on the 2020 assessment numbers or 2021 assessment?
Based on the it should say 2021 assessment numbers. They didn't change that there. So, yeah, no, that's based.
We're significantly higher.
We're significantly higher. Yeah, we're now the $600 million range. We were in the 500 for a long time. Now we're at 600. Pull back whole service rate.
Well, your some parts was at 150.
Yes.
And you just dropped it down to 25 and then 25.
Yes, I took 25 from parts and added this, so the contributions are the same on each side.
So they're overall budget.
No, it didn't change. Yeah, we took one from the other increase. So you'll see that parts, maybe the parts has come down 25,000.
Any other questions? Amanda, any questions?
And any questions related to that budget?
No, sorry, I kept pressing on mute and it just wouldn't. So no,
Okay.
I'm
Feel free to just yell at me. I watched that chat.
Okay, so let's move on to Parks and Rec.
Okay. Once again here, we gave a $3,000 increase for our labor in case our labor returns next year. Our two seasonal employees right now, if they return, once again, they're union employees, so they would see a step in pay. And so we just tried to show that increase there, hoping that they would come back and agree for us this summer. We did apply more money to the operations supplies, and we decreased that. We took that money from our contracted services, which you would have the Student Conservation Association 2 weeks less next year as compared to what we have funded for this year. And so, and those increases are increase in operating supplies are going to things like trash bags, maintaining the playgrounds, landscaping services, trail maintenance, things like that. But we did significantly reduce the hand tram expenses because the hand tram is not functional at this time. So we won't have a bench associated with that, so just keeping it secure state. So that's kind of the overview of the operating supplies. We kept fuel the same. Player maintenance supplies, the same. These are supplies that we would use. Next year, I think the biggest thing we'll probably do is stain the playground. We'll probably hire a professional service to help us with that, just so we can get it done as quickly as possible and keep it closed for only a short time as possible. So we'll be looking at that, and then continue on with our repair and maintenance contracted with turf and trash, and then working with our continue to improve our play fields out there. The donations to nonprofits stays the same at $60,000 there, which $25,000 hard funding goes to Four Valleys, and the rest goes to grant funding for $35,000 goes to apply for grants for the nonprofits. Advertising is the same. This is where the next one, contracted services. So that's where we have reduced that amount so we could apply it more to our operating expenses. And so we will have the SDA for only 2 weeks as we had compared past performance. And then as you go down, we have our typical utilities. We've been staying under that $20,000 mark, which is good. And so we always watch that. That can be, it just depends on what the rates are at the time. And that's been holding it under $20,000 per budget. And then if we keep going down, you'll see overall our non-labor has gone down there. So, and then our contribution also went down because we took that $25,000 from the Parks and Rec and we moved over to the funds to make that contribution, make those two contributions equal to each other. And then our IGC is once again just an estimate, but gives you an idea, it helps us to calculate our bill rate. And then overall, we have a decrease of $25,000 in this budget from last year. So we 25,000 under Parks and Rec, so taking it down to 398 for total. And a mill rate of 0.64. It's again based on 20 assessments.
I have a question on this. Then we investigated the balancing capital contributions between parks and roads. When I look through the list of projects, there's far more projects on parks and rec than roads. Is that the way you see it? That there's greater need for capital contribution to parks? I think it does make sense to balance.
Well, I do understand the perspective of having a balance, so it looks like we're giving equal donations to that aspect. I think the next biggest expensive project for the service area is gonna be in Parks and Rec. Because if we are to build a new bridge out there, probably that contribution is gonna probably be the next significant thing. The next two things I see in Parks and Rec are more planning phases with master plans for Alias and Playfield, Moose Meadows parking lot area, and then Girdwood Parks. So those two won't be so expensive, but those would be the next sort of things that we push and implement. So I would probably say the next expensive thing like that, but there are some roads, there are going to be some street things that are going to creep up probably right after we get down to the bridge, then we'll probably start to need tackle.
We have just completed the road reserves as well.
Correct. We took a big hit to it, and so we're trying to build that back up too. And I think the industrial park, our lot in the industrial park is going to be the next thing that we're going to probably have to take on to do some improvements there. Especially as soon as we get power there, we want to get power to everything so that we can make it all work.
And I think the other argument is very compelling, is there are more grant opportunities in Parks and Rec.
Correct. So we constantly chase grant opportunities for Parks and Rec versus roads. You know, like we stated last meeting, the state used to be our grant opportunity, that state no longer is.
Any other questions about Parks and Rec? Amanda?
Questions, Amanda, about questions?
Nope, all good, thank you.
Okay, we're going to cycle back to fire department.
Let me run over and see if the chief's available.
Is it just me or can you reach out?
Well, yeah,
I'm looking at it on my phone.
yeah, it's a PDF that I saved onto one of the
Can you
sides.
do like, can you do your control plus and see if you can fit bigger? And maybe that way
But I'll handle the computer. Oh,
I tried
it's right there, that's fine.
yeah, it's just control plus. And see if it's- If you do control plus, you just keep putting plus and everything. I just can't do it better. I can't. I'm reading it on my phone because
There's the plus button at the top.
it didn't work.
You know,
We're just trying to make it more readable.
Oh,
I-
okay.
I can't.
Just wants to do other things too.
There you go. Oh.
We also got copies of that.
thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, so much nicer. So much nicer. All of your.
And it has the right year on top.
I know, right? It's huge when it's actually like the final one. I'm sorry, I thought it was a seven.
This paper doesn't work. I'm trying to make it through.
Hit the plus.
Okay. Rick, no. 33?
Yeah, I'm pulling this up for Amanda, so she can see it.
Supervisor sees if we're ready to move on to fire department.
Okay, you'll see it now.
Okay, so after the other day, I went back and looked at the spreadsheet, because I don't understand spreadsheets all, and created a new spreadsheet. So this is looking at fire and EMS. I decreased our ask request, so this decreased it to just asking for the 35,000 for firefighter medical on top of the budget, fire budget that we've had in the last few years. And then also took into account that we, yes, that 80,000 for capital. And then I decreased the capital contribution there by one. We've been putting in 74,000 for one, I decreased it by 1. Because it's very difficult. So, so the capital contribution would be 74,000. And then what I've done is I've rebalanced it in the new EMS money and fire. So it's that. So basically, the only addition to the ones in yellow up there or in gray, which you can see, I've added. And then the IBCs I have control over those are the ones. So under this version, I would be absorbing that 20,000 for firefighter two into budget for 30,000, set 5,000. And then I cut out the extra.
Michelle, in the previous budget, we had included that 35K as well. Right?
We had, but the spreadsheet that came up was doing weird formatting stuff, it was coming in under budget from this year, and that made no sense. So I just retooled it back to that, and then if you can see, what I did on the side, maybe you can scroll to the side, I did an analysis of our lawn labor. You can see it's pretty well staying consistent, 224,000, last year 224,000, 223,000, last, sorry, 2019 was 220,000, 2020 was 200,023. And that, a lot of the chunk of that is the liability coverage we want to have, that insurance on vehicles and everything. And then I also did an analysis, which you can also see there, of labor, which is labor, which didn't include health benefits. And so I looked at what the payroll was for the past 100 years, we estimated payroll would be, and then adding on the 20% of payroll liabilities. That number, the number that I'm asking for, is very close. So I believe that is very good.
I noticed you had dropped your staff positions there, or you just gave it a little more detail there, but it's about.
Yeah, I just added them in there. I basically split as much as I could the funding to be fire in that 674, and then added in the extra amounts in there for fire for the recognizing the positions. Traditionally, it's been about 250,000 for call, which is probably that a little bit, recognizing for adding in that additional responses, and then broke that with EMS. And then I traditionally the fire service area has taken on the front of health insurance, so I split it 20%. In the big scheme of things, we get one water cat. You have to bracket between the two expenses categories. You get a chunk of this.
I'm going to look and see what this does to our mill rate.
Yes, let me show you this one. What I added a column on this one. Michelle sent this to me, so I quickly put it together. And so you'll see this is fire 21, and this is what we're under the current budget. So this is what taxpayers have paid so far for this year. So the contractual, we are 793. So chief proposes this year would be a $35,000 increase. And then the other significant increase this year would be the payments for engine 41. So that'd be an additional 80,000 there. Like you said, there's a reduction there for the capital contribution by $121. And then IGCs, that's just the estimate, but overall, IGCs were completely the same This year, there would be an increase, this would be an increase of 114,879, so that would give us a mill rate of 2.06 for the fire department bill there. So that'd be a 9% increase for this year.
And recognizing that the big chunk of that is the engine 41.
Up to that point, before that point, what your original budget was 793, and that 35K is for your yearly health exams for any guys.
Yeah, so that's because we don't need the last one is on health legislation guideline. Go over firefighter guideline for firefighter medicals, for your firefighters and firefighters, you should have a firefighter medical every year. And they had for Alaska, we had actually had for 7 years. Okay. Best practices for everyone to have firefighter line on. And what it also means is for new members coming in to have a firefighter this over clearance from the doctor if you're so sometimes and you join other departments sometimes so are the best the money, you know. There is I have to be a kind of the budget for it, and years ago we used to have medicals. I don't know if we had a budget at some time last 20 years, but which is not true to national standards. So it would be adding it back in just for firefighter ones and then expecting to get that difference on the budget.
Are you concerned with your training going down? Or is that?
Well, I recognize that everybody wants me to have the flat budget for the third or fourth year, so in trying to squish it down and reduce my expectations. That's what I was trying to see if I could maybe just suck it out and recognize that I am pushing more viewers because the mass, right?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could you remind me what our current mill rate is?
Our current mill rate for this year, I have to look that up. Give me a few seconds.
Of course.
The mill rate here, just so you guys know, would be, estimated 2.06. That would bring us in just about 5.9 total.
For 2021, the full GPSA mill was 5.07.
Yeah, our overall, are you looking for the individual mill rate or are you looking for the whole mill rate? I mean, is that for the service center?
Well, because there's going to be an increase in the Parks and Rec budget too, or not the Parks and Rec. What was it, the capital or your guys' budget? So I guess with everything together, it sounds like it's going to increase 0.8 almost.
Yes, but like I say, I'm on the high end of our mill rate, and so OMB at times will come up with a number that is significantly lower. But when I do the calculations based off the formula, these are the numbers I come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Take all of the question. Okay, what? Oh, so I know, Michelle, you had talked about giving a raise to your staff, and there is no raises.
Yeah.
Are you going to squeeze it out of, where are you squeezing it out?
Squeezing it out of EMS. So I instituted like a $21 an hour for EMS for responses. So I got that there. I don't show in here a the cost of living increase for next year, which will probably, make people happy with me. But again, I'm trying to hit what budget-ish. So
So none of your full-time staff will be getting anything?
they got I gave you an increase, in June, to try and balance out with the fire, they were suddenly by giving the EMS people $1 time responses, that made less. So balanced a little bit that way. I do have some cost savings, student capital is needed. We're gonna try not right away. And then
Doesn't that increase your?
I was told it would be less, we're going to use match for another spot, and, the salary will take over 2 days, and then the other two possibly. So it's huge, it's, higher pay rate.
And then the EMS response, is that just for your EMP3?
Yeah, $20 MP3, I'm paying engineers now, engineers for each, $20 for ALS, engineer, $21 for your, engineer. MP2. On responses only, have to trade rate as well. And then what is included in there is the seriously long cost of therapy. All set, that, I believe, will, we're doing response, pay raise for the volunteers, show that lots of firefighters. Which is still $67 per hour than what everyone else is getting in South Central, but it's at least nothing. So they use it up a little bit above the nominal. $80.
And so can your budget handle those increases?
Yes, that's why it's in here. As part of that. Ad hoc, so they then, calls and then, 2,000 for budget, periods. Okay.
Any other questions?
Just got a question, what overall about the, all of these budgets and these IGCs, I mean, IGCs are a quarter of this total budget for the fire department, and considerably less for all the other, divisions, and I going through, what they left as far as, there's board work, I suppose, with the chief, and everything else involved with it. Is there ever an opportunity to negotiate these, or is it just to tell you what they are? And the quarter of the budget is a lot to me.
So in the shop, all our vehicles are maintained by the AEP maintenance shop, so that's kind of, and then the parts, you'll see there's extra $3,000 at the top of the parts. When they don't use all the parts, which hasn't really happened, so we wasn't here if we did, we're going to get that back as a private. And so, they make in the shop, so part of that is to labor in the shop. Data systems are all under one RMS system. For facilities, that can be argued. But communications, radios, they have not improved us in radio bonds, that's part of the radio system. So I know, the office of fire chief, probably just pay for that, but we are, and then that's overall fire chief costs, and then finance, we pay the pleasure of paying the finance person.
And all of these IGCs are just based on the cost of revenue. That is everything.
Yeah, so so the items that they're set by the municipality.
Sometimes they're not all used up, but usually they use about 90%.
Okay. Any other questions on fire? Let's move on to cemetery very briefly.
Cemetery, we have no budget request for this year. Once again, it's now within the bonding world, so hopefully it will go up to bond with the Eagle River cemeteries and pass at that point in time. So at this point in time, no request for cemeteries.
Police.
Yep, police budget. So police budget at this point in time is essentially flat from last year. There probably will be a consumer price index increase in the fall, anywhere from 1 to maybe 4 or 5%, depending on what happens. But excuse me, that will be in January. And so at that point in time, we'll probably be discussing this budget, particularly again at first quarter revisions. The contract calls for whatever that CPI percentage is, we increase the contract by that. Last year we didn't do that because there was no increase in CPI. So we will address it again and look at it in January and then make that revision at that time. But otherwise, the other line items are all the same and continue on, not budget for next year.
Looking at
Thank you, Michelle.
the CPI is around about 3%. We'd be talking about 20,000.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, any questions on the police budget? Move on to capital designated.
Yes. So with capital, we have our list of capital projects, starting with the Parks and Rec department. We have Little Bears still on there, but we have heard nothing more from Little Bears itself, and so we have no update at this point in time. We're not seeking bonding for 22, so it's pending. It's in sort of a mothball stage right now. So they may be working on private planning and private options. So we're not pursuing that. The pedestrian crosswalk light has been completed, so it's nice to put things on the list that show they have been completed. And then the engineering design build package for Glacier Creek. At this point in time, it looks like we just met with Parks and Rec Josh Moran and the municipality, not the service area, municipality with remaining CARES Act funding is going to fund this. They're going to move forward on this. And their first step is they're going to do a two-step process here. And one is that they're going to do analysis, cost analysis to see what the concept and get a really firm idea of what it costs. And if it looks like it is a doable action, then they're going to move into the design phase, which they will work with the community on. We're working with the contractors, Bettisworth North and R&M, and Bettisworth North did the whole build on the fire station over there. We were very pleased with their work, and R&M was involved as well. And they're bringing in the special estimate company, HMS, to help with that. So at this point in time, we'll keep this on the list, but we may have other sources of funding for that, as well as a contribution for building. But I think the service area will play a large part in the building of the bridge out there. So we'll be working through that as well. So that is the two projects there. They're probably coming up sooner than later. And then master planning for Alyeska Playfield parking lot and comic storage, and then also for Forest Park. So those would be two things there to help us with the development of that area. And then the redevelopment of Alyeska playfield area, parking area. So this is just a rough estimate. This will really be flushed out through that master planning as to what the community comes up with for that area. That's seen as a very popular trailhead for moose meadows in the winter, and then also in the summer for activities at the park. So we would make that. There has been a request for a dog park trailhead down here at the end of Corliss Road. At this point in time, we don't know where that's going to go. There's some details that need to be worked out, but we're just putting it on the list. And then Lions Club has been in discussions with our department for quite a while about a pavilion over at Lions Club Park, a covered pavilion over there. And so we are actually in the initial stage of that about that. And probably at next month's meeting, we'll present a proposal for engineering, for design of one to GWS. And then that will help us to hopefully seek a land water conservation grant in the fall. If that money becomes available from the state, it's been several years. The state has had not done that grant, but they've been receiving the funding for it. So we hope they put that out soon. And then we did receive a request from the community for a batting cage to be built adjacent to the park, to the baseball field over here. And I think this would be a great Parks Foundation challenge grant. And so we will probably put that in the mix. We hope to raise most of that money privately through donations, but we may ask the board of supervisors for contribution out of capital to help with the building of that. So. And then moving on the roads, we have 3 large fish culverts that need to be replaced on Mount Hood, Alyeska Creek at Davos, Mount Hood, and Lake Tahoe. And so most likely we're going to try to work these through our annual maintenance budget and do this as summer projects. But at this point in time, we have it on there as capital projects. They've been on there for a while. But we believe with our new contractor, we should be able to work that through. They have the skills and resources to make that happen. The other one here, and the GBS has approved this, is bringing power to the industrial lot. So we want to bring a transformer to the industrial lot so that from there we can hook up. This would be a 2-step process. One is just getting the transformer to the industrial lot, the power source, and then 2 would be lining out power to our bowl rail and installing lights in the industrial park for our street maintenance operations. Right now we run off a temporary power source. But we're sort of hamstrung with the fact that the Heritage Land Bank hasn't platted this area, and so getting the power resource into our lot is difficult because Chugash wants to have platted lots that they put power to, which is understandable. But they are kind of willing to work with us because we have a pilot lot line that we share with the wastewater treatment plant down there, so we can probably work with that, but it's complicated because other people in the industrial lot who aren't on pilot lots want power as well. So we're working with HLB to hopefully get this resolved. We can continue to get this going and maybe get something set up for this winter so that we can park all the equipment on the lot instead of in a temporary location like we do usually. And then in the long run is a storage garage for the road maintenance lot. Right now, our only warm storage we have is the old fire station over there, which, we work very hard to keep that thing alive. The station is old, building's in very poor shape. Done a lot to keep it going, but it's the only warm storage we have. And in the winter, we keep a truck full of sand in there. And if that building was to be locked, it just makes our operations just got more difficult. You get that phone call at 3 in the morning, and it's raining on top of snow and ice. You're trying to sand and you're trying to get the pit open. So I do feel the service area needs a warm storage, but it should be down in an industrial lot. So that's a future wish there. And then the repave of Malberg, that's completed. So that's something we can knock off the capital list there. And then covered sand storage is another thing. Right now we cover our sand storage with tarps in the winter, and it's a mess to get them open and get them clear of snow. It does keep the snow from getting directly onto the chips, but it still is a hassle to get out of the way, and it does lead to some lost product. So we work through that. So I think covered storage, which we think would be a large coverall dome tent, would work nicely. DOT uses a lot in its operations. We'd like to see it installed down there. And then overall, I do think the service area should build a general savings of $1 million, and then knock off capital projects, recharge, knock them off. Since we cannot depend on bonding to help us with our programs down here because of the failure for the past in Anchorage, even though Anchorage doesn't pay for those bonds, the service area needs to be equipped to take care of their own infrastructure since we have started building quite a bit more infrastructure here with storm systems and things like that. It's going to age, it's going to be needed to be replaced, and we have to take care of it when it does, or when disasters happen like flooding or things like that. So I think that's a good thing and overall for it to do. You know, and this capital savings can be split between the different departments. You know, the board always has the flexibility to say, hey, we're going to go grab money from Parks and Rec. We're going to put it towards this road repair because it's a priority and life and safety issue. But I think overall, I think it's good for it to be a strong capital account. For the fire department, they are looking at replacing engine 41, which is a $900,000 expense. They are working through that right now, and so we should hear more about that. For funding requests, we would probably use both a contribution from capital and then take out a short-term loan, basically like an auto loan, to pay it back over 5 to 7 years. The interest rates on those loans, surprisingly, are much better than bond rates. So it's a good way to go. And the city actually uses this at times for purchasing vehicles within Anchorage. So we would probably partake in that. And then the other one is the replacement of utility 41, the Suburban. You know, this is the frontline vehicle used in the first response, probably the most used. And so they're looking to replace that in 22. That would be a cost of $75,000. And the other one is the hoses, and that will be discussed tonight, but that is immediate need. That request is actually less than 30,000. I think it's down to 27,000 or 28 for that request. So they will be talking about tonight as part of your regular meeting business. At this time, no capital purchase needed for the police budget for second term. So that's overall is the budget.
Okay. So the other thing we should probably just touch on is the dollar rates.
Yes. I just went through and confirmed it. It looks like, I'm coming off my calculations, it looks like a mill rate based on is 5.89 based on my calculations. And like I say, OMB tends to come up with a lower mill rate because of different revenue streams or factors or interests that have grown in the service area, and they apply that back and then reduce their mill rate down. So right now our mill rate for this year is 5.07, but my estimation I think last year was like 5.6.
Yeah, 5.5. I think that's because I just checked into that. I think it's because they were still using the 2020 assessment values. There's a note in there saying the updating the legal funding in 2021 assessment. And that is the
Okay, yeah, maybe it is. I felt like I confirmed it against there, but I'll check that.
Yeah, I think their general document shows the level. It's up approaching 700.
What's that?
I think it's up approaching 700 now, the assessment value.
Yes. Yeah, high sixes for sure.
Yeah, I think it's still 620. So, yeah, it looks like it's, my calculations show that I think this proposal we're about 5.5 and about 5.
Right.
But again, we'll find out.
Yes. But overall, we're under the mill cap of 6, which historically we've always been. Since we've taken on fleet services, we've always been floating in this range of 5.5 to 5.8 for a long time. But then assessed values go up and then our mill rate drops. So it's been climbing on assessed values here for the last couple of years, for sure.
Any other questions on mill rates or capital budgets or anything else we've got?
So just looking at the fire budget, I'm a little concerned because there's no increase at all for the fire chief and assistant fire chief salaries. And those have not been raised at least in the last 3 years, so that doesn't give the fire board a lot of wiggle room to give them anything at all, especially with the raiser and budget numbers that she has.
Is this budget actually coming from the fire board effectively?
No, this budget comes from the fire chief,
Right.
but the fire board is responsible for the cost for the fire chief,
Right.
as well as we're paying.
The thing is, this is what this budget will be presented. So if the fire wardens a higher budget, you've got an out.
Have you talked to Michelle about that for her increases in her staff? We're sure that doesn't include
Yeah, so all the increases that she's talking about, she keeps saying that she wanted it for her staff and not for herself. So the concern is, how do we stay competitive? Or do we do, how do we stay competitive to keep our budget?
I mean, one solution that, could happen if the fire department wants to delay the approval of their fire budget so the board can work out the differences with the chief. That'd probably be the best thing to do before GBOS votes on it. What we're working with is the O&D deadlines. And so the chief has submitted a budget. And so it'd probably be better if the board had a chance to review it, approve it before it goes forward. And so, I mean, that could happen tonight. There could be a request given to GBOS that the voting on this is done and delayed. We want to delay it, much longer than 2 weeks, but I would say it'd be nice to have it come back to GBOS within 7 to 10 days with a revision if it looks like you're looking for a revision. Because what happens on this end is the board presented it from the fire department, and they vote on it as presented. They don't get into the details because they're the customer. So we look for the board, the fire chief to give a budget that is reflective of what you guys really need.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, this is the first I've seen from the fire budget, this one.
Yeah.
And I know the rest of the board has not seen it at all.
Maybe worthy to talk to chief and see if she wants to delay the vote on it so you guys can have more time to discuss it.
I think the problem is that this time scale and this scale is being offered several things. So this is the process we plan to follow. Maybe we're planning to go on in scale. A last minute delay is kind of indicative of planning.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't have any say in this budget.
Right.
So, I have to go back to the rest of the board.
The whole area, as I often say, the whole area of responsibilities between what GBOS is responsible for, fire board is responsible for, chief is responsible for. What the municipality is responsible for is a little kind of weird. But yes, I mean, we're effectively paying for it. We're representing people who receive the service and paying for the service. We're not representing the people who provide the service. That's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there are no other questions. We'll go to public comment. First of all, public comment to state full name and address. Limited to 3 minutes per person. 1 minute to get comments on the agenda. Okay, I'm not seeing any public comments. We can adjourn the work session. Okay, close in favor. Okay.
Aye.
Thanks. We'll take a quick break, Amanda, and I'll switch over to the other meeting.
Very good. Let me move to our regular.
Thank-